So, do I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
I am I as well. So, we don't have much of an agenda, Diane, but do you want to read the agenda slowly?
Okay.
While we wait for Eric?
Okay. I'll start off by saying good evening to everybody. So after I read the agenda, the board can vote to either amend it or approve the agenda as written. We have one item tonight, and that is the consideration of a housing consultant. I couldn't stretch it out any longer than that. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. We're good. I'm a big one for just going with what we have. So
I'll send Eric a text and tell him we're waiting for him.
yeah, that's fine. So, thank you, Diane. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as read, or revisions if you have any?
Move to approve.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Good job, Marion. Don't want to choke you or anything there. So what we're doing tonight, we don't have any members of the public except Margot here tonight and Bob, but we're interviewing or listening to consultants tonight. I don't think we have all of them tonight. We have some on Thursday also, Jeremy?
There were 3 interested. 2 are able to speak with you during the month of June. The other can't speak with you until July.
Okay.
All of these consultants are very busy with the MBTA 3A zoning, so
Yep.
we're able to get Nels this evening and another consultant at 7:30. So 2 this evening, and then we'll see what else we can line up for you.
All right. So, Eric, we already opened the meeting, just so you know. So, and I read the agenda and approved the agenda. So, do you want to make any kind of introduction to the process, Jeremy, or?
Well, there's been some interest of the select board to have, on retainer or on call or on available housing consultant or a planner that's experienced with the 40B process, the various affordable housing projects and processes. As you know, the town of Sherborn has, over 7 affordable housing projects in various stages of approval. Almost 356 housing units, all told in those various proposals. So there's some significant decisions to be made coming up that the select board might benefit from having a consultant or an expert available to bounce things off of and to help advise you. So with that in mind, we've invited a couple housing consultants and planners to speak with you to give some of their background and what they may be able to do to assist you. And then at some a later meeting, you can determine what you would like to do by way of retaining their services.
Excellent. So do you want to introduce, looks like, is your first name Nels? We have a first consultant here. Do you want to introduce?
Yeah, so this is Nels Nelson. He's the co-founding principal of Community Scale. And we've provided him, and he's actually doing some work for the planning board currently. He's assisting us with the MBTA 3A zoning, our planning board. So he is aware of various things in Sherborn, but for the benefit of all, I provided them each a sort of a brief listing of the various housing projects within Sherborn and their various state, their size, a link to our land development webpage that has all of the detail of all these projects on our webpage and our housing production plan. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Nels, let him introduce himself and some of his background.
Sounds good. Thanks,
welcome.
Jeremy. So welcome, Nels. We have one select board member missing tonight, but we're looking forward to hearing your intro.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be in front of the select board. So I'm a planner based in Somerville. I worked at Stantec which is a big firm, for about 10 years before me and two other colleagues decided to go off and make our own company, which we're calling Community Scale. And in my career working in Massachusetts, I've touched upon a number of 40B projects in different capacities. So early on, I was doing general land area minimum assessments on behalf of developers to go against communities like Weston that were trying to prevent them from building by using safe harbor from 1.5% general land area minimum. And in that process, got to appear 3 times and provide testimony at the Housing Appeals Committee. Since then, I've done similar analysis on behalf of municipalities to determine whether they have safe harbor. So I did that with Nahant, Everett, and Dedham. Dedham was also looking at the pipeline of housing that was coming along in 40B versus what's on their SHI, and then determining what rate of production they would need in order to achieve safe harbor. So you can see, well, I guess, and then the last point is now, as Jeremy indicated, me and most other planners in Massachusetts are very busy rewriting the zoning of 175 communities to respond to 3A, including in Sherborn. I'm working in Sherborn, work on a vendor list with MHP, Mass Housing Partnership, and they assigned us to Sherborn to pick back up after the last round of 3A was considered, and then we were sent back to the drawing board to rethink it. So in that process, I have taken a look at some of the projects that are on your 40B list, and are analyzing them spatially to understand whether or not they'd make good candidates for inclusion in a 3A zone. So that's about the long and the short of it. So a lot of my experience with 40B has been on the planning side, not so much on the administration of the program and the units and the interaction between the community and the state in terms of getting things on the inventory, et cetera. But I'm happy to answer any questions and interested to learn more about what your needs are.
Well, quick question is, if we were to consider your firm, can you describe how large the firm is and who your partners are? Like, do you have a depth of or a variety of experience with the firm?
Yeah, so there's still the 3 of us.
Yeah.
And myself and my partner have each been in the field for about 15 years. And we have a junior who also has 6 years of experience. And we've worked with a lot of communities in Massachusetts and also nationally. So we're also doing housing studies in other parts. We're going out to Honolulu next week to work with the city and county of Honolulu on their housing plan. We're doing a housing plan for Alexandria, Virginia. So we work nationally, but we're based in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has a lot of action on housing right now. So we're interested in working around here too. So yeah, I can list other communities that are working with Massachusetts.
No, that wasn't my question, though. You've missed the question here. So the question is, what is your breadth of experience of your 3-person team in terms of different disciplines within?
No, we're actually really focused. We're very focused on housing. Housing and zoning are the 2 things that we do.
Yeah, but you're not really getting the question at all.
Okay.
So what I'm asking is, what are the different disciplines that you can bring in housing areas? Are you familiar with water resources? Are you familiar with septic systems? Are you familiar with, MBTA communities? There's a whole host of subtopics, and I'm trying to get a better understanding of the breadth of your firm's experience and expertise.
Yeah, that makes sense. So our areas of focus really are on the planning side. So looking at, for example, a housing production plan. I saw your recent one from 2022. We're currently writing the housing production plan for the town of Lancaster. And I would say that falls really in line with our capacities because it it involves a lot of consensus building with the community, thinking holistically, um, understanding the demographic changes, and then understanding the constraints, but again, at a planning level, not an engineering level. And so for that reason, we rely and work a lot in GIS. So if there's a mapping component, we've handled that. While I was doing the GLAM analysis for 40Bs, we spent a lot of time in GIS understanding the development constraints. But again, at a planning level, not an engineering level. So all three of us are planners. And that's where we've been focused.
Eric?
Hi, thanks. So just to give a little specificity, and anyone in the select board can chime in if I'm not characterizing this correctly. I think we're looking at a combination of some planning and frankly some reactive nature. We're in a current situation where we have a stakeholder in town who's proposed, I think, around 440Bs, and and how they integrate into our town plan as well, and how that could possibly integrate into the 3A zoning. The stakeholder has also come to us and said, like, you know what, instead of doing this, I might do this other thing. So we do need someone kind of quickly that can come on and just advise us to make sure, we're protecting our interests and doing what's reasonable and that such things make sense. That's it. So there would be, again, and then how that then integrates into the long-term planning of the 3A. So some is planning, but not all is long-term, and frankly a little reactive into, like, what is our actual rights? What can we ask for mitigation, infrastructure improvements, or what's reasonable? Do you know what I mean? And just kind of just advise us as to our current situation with the stakeholder and how it integrates in the long term. I don't know if I'm describing that well enough, but
No, I completely understand what you're
Okay.
saying. But as I said at the outset, I've not been in the middle of a town 40B applicant process. So I know that someone I work with quite a bit, Lynn Sweet, does that kind of work. That might be one of the other three people you're talking to. But that's not something that I've been involved with. I've been involved in between communities and developers in other regards, doing zoning, doing master planning, but not specifically in 40B. So I can't answer those questions.
okay.
Miriam?
Yeah, thanks for coming and talking to us, Nels. From a fellow Scandinavian, I feel right at home here. I hope you do too. I was pleased to see that you're working with the planning board on MBTA community zoning. That seems really appropriate. I wanted to ask you a little more about your record here in Massachusetts. Focusing here, of course, because we have our own laws, and that's what we're struggling with. I think in general, our planning board and our town planner and any of us know how to do the math. What's our minimum to get into safe harbor, et cetera, et cetera. And just so you understand, we're not trying to prevent affordable housing here. On the contrary, but I'm sure you've heard from planning board what our environmental constraints are. They're really quite severe. So I was interested in the various towns that you have worked with in working with the housing court. And I presume that you were involved in 40B appeals. Were these situations in which the zoning board denied the 40B and the developer appealed? So if you say that you defended affordable housing, does that mean you were on the developer's side or on the town side? Which side were you helping in those situations?
Yeah, when I went to the committee, it was always on the behalf of developers. So that was Braintree, North Reading, and Weston. I might be missing another one. And I've done similar work for developers in other communities, and then trying to establish, whether or not you're in safe harbor. I worked with some other communities on that. But yeah, all the times I went to the HAC was on the behalf of a developer.
Great. I think that's all I have just for the moment, but I'll think of some more. So I'll pass to someone else for now.
I don't have any further questions. Stephen, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I think Eric and well, you and Eric and Marion have basically covered it all for me. Thanks.
Okay, Jeremy, did you want to add anything?
So I did, for the benefit of all, I put Community Scale's website link on the chat, which obviously has a lot of information for what Nels and his company, his capabilities and projects and so forth. So just wanted to point that out. But I don't have any particular questions tonight, but we'll happily chat more offline with Nels and the select board as we sort of narrow in on what you folks feel you need.
Okay,
Yeah, it was, I enjoyed your webpage, your website, Nels. It was very informative. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome, and it was great to meet you all. And yeah, best of luck navigating this process.
thanks, Nels.
Thank you.
Bye.
So you have the second person coming at 7:30, Jeremy?
Yeah, she had another meeting, but she freed up for 7:30. So
That's fine.
apologize that you have to wait a little bit, but
No, that's fine. It's hard to judge. And Paul texted me. He's at another select board meeting with another town.
Yeah.
One of his clients. So
It's too bad Paul isn't here because he is the one who instigated the idea of bringing on a consultant.
no, it's okay. We've got four of us. We're good.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's why we were done in 20 minutes because Paul wasn't here.
Yeah.
you'll see
Way back again, seltzer.
All right. Hey,
Judy,
Steven,
when she joins us,
while we're
Judy
waiting for the
Barrett.
third person, the graduation speech Friday night went well.
Oh, that's
Good.
good. Did you integrate some of my stuff into yours, or you just
I
made your own?
loved it, but no, I didn't. I sort of did. I didn't even write anything out. I had like about 6 bullet points, and I then just talked extemporaneously. So there was,
Good.
and I know a bunch of the ones who are graduating because they're all in the Boy Scout troop. A lot of them,
Mm.
and they're almost all the ones in the Boy Scout troop are lifeguards at Farm Pond too, like Gavin Lynch and all
Yeah.
those guys. Chipnick
So,
Stratton.
so Stephen, save it for next year.
Yeah, that was my plan, is to save it for next year.
It was
You're on for next year.
Well, I went to Penn and I hadn't heard of that reference to the professor at Penn, so I liked it.
Yeah, I listened to there's this podcast called No Stupid Questions, and one of the hosts is named Angela Duckworth, and she is a psychology professor at Penn also.
Yeah,
And I think her like mentor is Marty Seligman. So she mentions him a lot. So that's where I first heard about Marty Seligman and this whole thing that I wrote out.
So it turned out there was 174 graduates, so that was pretty good.
Whoa.
Was this did they have like a in memoriam type thing for Sadie Morrow? I think this was the year she would have
They didn't-
graduated, right?
I mean, I actually was the recording person when they had it last summer at Pilgrim Church. Dominic Walsh and I ran the audiovisual for that. We had like an hour's notice to do it, but no, but the speakers, what do they call it? The class president spoke, and I think what do they call it? The salutatorian, I think, spoke. Is that what it is? Anyway, I think they both mentioned her. There was actually another member of their class that's deceased also. I forget who it was. So,
Jeff, could you clarify what you see as the process here? We heard from Nels, that's great. We're going to hear from the next one, I forget her name.
yeah.
It's 7:30. We're not discussing any of them now, I guess.
No, we won't discuss them and we won't vote on anything tonight. I think we can confirm if it's on the agenda for Thursday night. We can discuss it on Thursday night and decide how we want to proceed. We won't, as Jeremy mentioned, have the third candidate until July sometime.
Right, so we can deal with it Thursday night, yeah. Oh, incidentally, I did go to that event in Needham.
Oh, how was that?
In your place, Jeff.
Yeah.
Actually, it was very interesting. It was very interesting. I was glad I went.
Good.
There were representatives from 4 other towns and the Charles River watershed. So 3
Yeah.
other towns and the Charles River watershed. They all had very different things to talk about. From Millis, let's see, who else? Millis, I forget who the other towns were. They'll come right back to me. And the problems that they're facing regarding water were very diverse, including towns that have large wells that provide well water to other towns,
Yeah.
and dealing with PFAS and how that has gone. And towns that are struggling with stormwater, especially Needham. They had a huge
Tide or whatever
stormwater event.
Arkansas, yeah.
Yeah, and then the Charles River a person, I think you all know, talked about their modeling. But they were all very, very informative. And there were just a few questions from various state senators were there that
Yeah.
I guess, Becca had dragged a bunch of senators in to go from town to town. Next, they were going to Millis this afternoon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was.
Like I said, she called. She didn't really. I don't know how they planned it. She called me Friday night and just said, "Hey Jeff, can you come do this?"
Yeah, well, she would have been happy to have a couple more warm bodies there. I think
Yeah, that's what I
the
figured.
right persons to be there would have been Tom Trainer and maybe
Yeah.
Sean. And of course, Jeremy,
Yep.
if he could have, but yeah.
I mean, from someone who actually is in administration that deals with water supply, I can tell you that there's a large removal from politicians of people who actually execute it. She should have had a room full of DPW directors versus senators. Unless they're willing to listen and actually pass or do something real legislation, there's a huge divide between the people who actually do the work and the policymakers. And I don't want to be cynical, and Jeff also extended the invite to me, but I obviously working full time couldn't make it there.
She had a DPW director though. I'm interrupting.
Yeah, she had 3 DPW directors on the panel, but in the audience, I think Eric's point is there could have been more DPW directors who could have reacted,
Yeah.
in a lot more granularity to what was said.
I hope they contribute to something, because I've been to maybe like a half dozen things like that, not that exactly, but very similar to that. And there's a lot of placating and we feel bad for you and thank you and so on like that, but they kind of move on. You know what I mean? It's only who was it? Who was the one from Holliston? She actually worked in engineering before doing that. What was her name? She was probably like my age, Dykema. She like actually did stuff. You know what I mean? She was actually engaged.
Mhm.
And she of course has left the general court and gone into the private sector like anyone with skill sets.
Yeah, there were a couple of people there on the environmental committee of the Senate, but still, you're right, Eric. I didn't get a sense that that they had that they wanted to talk about solutions. So
yeah,
well,
I've probably testified in front of like 4 of those different things. I think Jeremy's probably done more than I have. You know what I mean? And,
I imagine.
And it's interesting, but it's an experience. It is what it is. But they're gonna do what they want to do. I mean, look at the 3A stuff. It is what it is. Obviously, I don't know how much communities realize. It'd be interesting if enough communities actually get behind it. You start reversing some of those numbers. Even Framingham, which is the most open cities toward housing anywhere. I mean, really open to housing. I think they've permitted in the last few years like 2,000 new units, something crazy like that. And none of those get grandfathered in, and they're saying you got to do another 4,300 units. Yeah, at some point, it's
Yeah.
just like they're having a presentation about it right now as I speak. And at some point, it just becomes stupid. You know what I mean? Like, how
Yeah.
much can anyone do?
Exactly.
So this had the Needham DPW director, Millis DPW director were on the board, as well as a Plainville Select Board member.
Yep.
Yeah, the Plainville Select Board member, yeah, that's right. He wasn't DPW, but he talked about DPW issues, actually. So
And Julie Wood was from the Charles River watershed.
that's right.
Yeah,
And
she
talked
drafted
about,
our smart sewering plan that we did for the town.
she was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very short, you know,
Yeah.
nothing got into great depth, but
Mhm.
it was interesting to see the range of other kind of hot issues in the neighboring towns. For the PFAS, it was interesting. The Millis DPW director talked about their efforts to get all their public wells filtered, and they've actually done quite a bit to get, I think, 2 or 3 of the 6 wells that they have, or 8 wells, fitted with PFAS filters. Now they're facing tremendous expense. As you know, it's activated charcoal. It has to be changed at least once a year, probably more than once a year, and it's very expensive.
And the issue is you can regenerate it, but with the regenerated waste, actually, PFAS can't be incinerated. So the disposal, as you take it off the carbon, is interesting. I think it's put on Teflon or whatever nonstick pans. It's used as a fire retardant. You're not exactly going to incinerate it. I don't know what type of temperatures, residence time you're going to get to do that. It's just not going to happen.
That's right. I read in the journals about kind of scientists in research laboratories are trying to figure out a simple chemical process that can degrade PFAS. There's nothing in the environment that'll do it. But there are chemical processes, but they're really complex. They'd be really expensive. Frankly, I don't think any of them so far are at all scalable.
Well, and there's
Yeah.
176 different types of PFAS also.
Right, but they all have in common certain things that
Right.
could be common, like they have to remove the high energy, carbon fluoride bond.
Yep.
But
All right. Well, let's get going on our next consultant. So, Judy, welcome to the meeting.
oh,
This is the 4-person Sherborn Select Board. We have 1 person absent tonight, and our town administrator, you may know, Jeremy Morset. And what we're doing tonight is we're considering whether or not to hire a consultant to help us with all our housing initiatives, as he probably briefed you. And we just want to get a sense of some of your experience and your background, and you and your firm, how you feel that you could help guide us in different domains that we're having to consider.
Sure. So let me tell you a little bit about me and my firm. And just so you know, I'm actually in a hotel in Worcester tonight because I'm speaking at a conference tomorrow morning.
Oh, good.
So if the Zoom gets wonky, I'll just turn my video off, but you've still got me.
You're fine.
So I've been in the field for 35 years. I started out in local government and went on and worked for the state for a few years and have been a consultant since 1996. And I worked for a couple of other firms over the course of my career, as you can probably imagine. I set my own firm up about 7 years ago, largely because I was tired of commuting into Boston. And this was, of course, all before COVID. I suppose if I'd waited long enough, I wouldn't have had to commute there much anymore. But anyway, I have a firm now, and it's over time, it's just kind of grown. It's continued to grow. I have 10 planners and a GIS and an admin support person. And there are sort of 3 key things that we do. And then a lot of other things in between. We do comprehensive planning, we do a lot of zoning work, and we do work in housing policy. So the housing policy umbrella is affordable housing, it's fair housing, it's kind of housing planning is really sort of those pieces together, and different communities have obviously different needs. So some housing consulting work is focused more on certain aspects of that planning work than others. You know, as I said, we do some other things in between. I do a lot of technical assistance work with boards of appeal that are dealing with comprehensive permits. I do that mainly as a consultant for a mass housing partnership, but I've also been hired directly by towns to help boards as well. The guidebook for ZBAs that many boards have, I wrote in 2017. So I'm very familiar with Chapter 40B. It's you can't be in this business and not know it. And I'm also on the Board of Appeals in my own town, so I have felt this pain myself. But I think, you know, beyond that, I guess really the question is really, what does the town want help with? Because we can do a lot of different things. I know you have a lot going on with housing. I kind of saw the list of projects and gulped and thought, oh my gosh, this poor little town is like, there's a lot going on here. But I also saw a number of comprehensive permit denials and, you know, cases sort of pending. And I thought there's just a lot going on in this community. So before I say, you know, what we can do, I think we need to know what you think you need.
Do you want me to answer that, Eric, or do you want to take a stab at it?
Just to be fair, can I say the same thing I said last time?
Well, sure.
So it's a combination of reaction to a certain situation we have right now and combine that into some planning for the future. We have a situation right now where there's a stakeholder in town who I think it's like 4 different properties, has proposed 4 different 40Bs, and we're evaluating them in, you know, before, some before ZBA, I think some have been denied, some are still under review. And this developer has come back and said, hey, instead of this, can I do this other thing? And we want some advice. We want some advice as to, like, you know, is that the right thing? Is it not? What are the pros and cons of that? Some kind of unbiased advice, because a lot of us are very engaged in this, and you know, everyone has kind of strong opinions or whatever it is, but we need someone to step back and say, okay, you know what? This makes sense. This doesn't. Here you can ask for, you know, I personally have a certain interest in like infrastructure mitigation. Like, you know, what can we ask? What can we not ask? What's reasonable in this certain specific situation? Then when that situation, you know, goes toward being resolved, how does it integrate with the long term with the 3A requirements that are coming down the road? Can we integrate it? Can we not? And that type of stuff. And how does this, you know, who knows? Maybe we revise our housing master plan as a result. I don't know. You know, but there is a kind of the immediate concern with a significant stakeholder in town, and a longer term concern at how, when that does get resolved, how that integrates into long term planning. And anyone can add anything else.
Yeah, I would just add a little bit more background, which you may already know, but we're a little bit unique in that within the 495 corridor, we're one of the few towns that's 100% private wells, including, you know, it's a public water supply, but the town buildings are supplied by a well. So having only private water supplies and private septic systems really is a challenge in the town. You know, because any development, we're most concerned about impact on not only other residents' wells or water supplies, but also we have a lot of conservation land, quite a bit of conservation land. So we're concerned with that. We also really are supportive of affordable housing. So we would very much like to be receptive and supportive of allowing diverse communities, economic and demographically diverse communities, to be able to live in town. We have almost no jobs in town other than in town hall. We have a very little industry. The tax revenue is almost entirely a private residence property tax revenue, so it's not diverse from that standpoint. And we you know, we're working on legislation to create a water district and possibly get water from adjacent towns in the northwest corner of town on a street called Coolidge Street. So we're looking at some development there. But that's really the challenge, is that, you know, any land that's available poses a lot of environmental concerns with neighbors and abutters, and not just wells, but like ledge disruption issues and other issues that people are concerned about, and you probably dealt with. So you know, I think we're not opposed to growth, and we're definitely not opposed to affordable housing, but we're just trying to do it in a balanced way and to understand, you know, what's in the best interest. And we have one of our members of our select board here, Marion Nitro, was chair of the planning board for quite a long time. So she created the master plan for the town with the team, and also the open space and recreation plan, which were both quite good. And we've now updated and refreshed the master plan, I believe. So, you know, we have a lot of work that's been done, and we have a lot of interesting aspects to our town. You know, it's well known because of its school system, which is a big attraction for people that want to live here. So that's sort of what we're trying to adapt to.
Mhm.
So what does your master plan say about where you want to provide for affordable housing? What parts of town, what areas have you identified as that you think are suitable?
You want to answer that?
Yeah. Has anyone read the master plan lately?
Yes, I
Uh,
have.
Yeah, well, you know, at the time, we were up against the same thing we're up against now. Where can housing be put where there is sufficient hydrogeological resources to handle wells and a very large septic or even a sewage treatment plant. But at the time that we wrote our master plan, which was 2019, we did not have yet the option of getting water or sewer connection with adjacent towns, which we're now working on. It's not recent, actually, been working on that for the last 3 years. I forget how long, but for a while. But our master plan didn't take that into account, nor did our housing production plan in the beginning. So it's almost a moot point, but both of those plans recognized, kind of emphasized the fact that we're up against geological realities here that are very hard to deal with when it comes to adding affordable housing or dense housing of any kind. So I wanted to ask you, I think Jeff put the conundrum very well. I won't repeat it, but I was interested that you've provided technical assistance for zoning boards. And I'm wondering if any of that assistance sounds as if, from what you've just heard from us, sounds as if it would be relevant to Sherborn's water and sewer constraints.
So I'm a policy planner. I am not an environmental planner. I'm not an engineer.
Mhm.
When these kinds of issues come up in project review, I always encourage the boards to hire a qualified peer review consultant.
Mhm.
Those are the people who need to be involved. If the board is going to act on a comprehensive permit in a way that's likely to end up in an appeal, they need to have competent consultants on their side, because believe me, the Housing Appeals Committee doesn't really care what the neighborhood says. What they care about is, did the board have a justifiable reason to deny the permit or impose the conditions that they did? So that's how I always approach the question. If it's something I'm qualified to answer, I will. If it's not, then I advise the board to get help. And typically on comprehensive permits that are multifamily in nature, I advise boards to get both an engineer and an architect involved, because I find that a lot of people get very hung up on density, and often density is not really the issue, it's design. So sometimes that can help move the needle a little bit on what people think they can accept.
Mhm.
As for water and sewer, you are not the only town in this boat. You live there, so you know, to you it's very precious, and it should be. But I work in Berkshire County, and you're not the only town that's dealing with utility issues and geologic issues. And I guess I'd say, which may not comfort everybody, there are usually engineering solutions that people may not like, but there are usually ways to deal with those issues. And if there aren't, then the site's not appropriate.
Mhm.
But the best I can answer without knowing each site, which I don't, and I don't know the background on all these cases, is you know, you have to look at each one individually, and what may be a water and sewer constrained site in one case may also have a remedy available to it that another site would not. So all of these sites are different and you have to look at them individually.
Yeah.
But you're not the only town that deals with no water and sewer. And
No.
Well,
And-
Yeah,
my
we're all
point
right
was
with that.
within the 495 corridor, we're one of the few towns that fall
oh,
that.
sure, oh,
We're not
sure,
in
I
Berkshire
understand.
County, but yes, I understand.
Totally understood. I mean, Worcester County, I can name you towns that don't have water and sewer that
Yeah.
also have had to deal with comprehensive permits. So I just want to sort of put that to rest, is that
Mhm.
the fact that you don't have that infrastructure is not on its own an inherent constraint. It is,
Right.
or an impediment, I guess I should say. It can be, but it doesn't wipe out every opportunity in town. So you mentioned you have a sort of significant stakeholder. Is this like a local landowner who wants to do something with their property and is talking to the town? Just sort of maybe educate me about what you're looking for on that front.
It's a developer who's purchased a fair amount of properties around town, who believes strongly in affordable housing, and has proposed 40Bs in each of these properties, and has also come back and said, there's been some back and forth with ZBA. I think it declined at least one of them, and is willing to go and go to court and fight these things and so on like that. But is considering coming back and saying, I might consider this other thing. And so we just kind of want some advice during that. I mean, to what Jess said before, we know we have our peer review consultants. We have people specializing in stormwater and water and sewer and all that stuff. So we have that technical advice. I want to clarify that's probably, and we can get that. And frankly, probably one half the people on this call have some kind of like ability on that.
You probably do.
So we simply want, I can't, advice right away on kind of a certain situation with like, a certain stakeholder on a handful of properties and how they integrate long term. It's like I said before. I mean, I can give as much specifics as you want, or I'll also ask Bob to speak up and give specifics
We also have
to the
another,
situation.
we have another major national developer in town that's evaluating a project in town also. And
Yep.
and I mentioned we are moving legislation forward to create a water district in the northwest part of our town, which would support some of those larger developments.
Mhm. Mhm.
So unfortunately, my answer to your question is probably going to frustrate you a little bit, because there isn't one answer to, how do you sort of approach a developer like this? You really have to start with, what is the town trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get a lot of affordability? Are you trying to get the limited amount of the least amount of development you can get? Because the answer that if you said to me, we want the least amount of development we can get, then that takes the conversation in a certain direction. If the answer is we're trying to get as much affordability as we can get, the conversation goes in a different direction. So you have to be clear what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this person and with their property. And how are you defining and thinking as select board members what the public benefit is? What's the public benefit you're trying to achieve? Because if you lose sight of that, then your negotiations with that party probably won't go very well.
I think it's safe. I would recommend that we wait to see some specificity on the alternate development, and then that's why we want a consultant that has a reasonable background in 40Bs and potentially 3As, but more the 40Bs, onto just the pros and cons that we can then have that dialogue. I don't think we're prepared right now to give you specificity onto like, we want this and we want that and so on. And maybe everyone in this room doesn't even agree, frankly. I think we're looking at basically what are the pros and cons of these different alternatives and what's our risk and just everything else like that. I can't describe it any other way.
And I'm not asking you to answer the question specifically right now. I'm saying that would be my question to you. If the developer came back with 3 different scenarios and said, so what are the pros and cons? The first question I'm going to ask you is, what is the most important thing you're trying to accomplish? Because that's going to be column number 1 on the pros and cons. So, a consultant isn't doing their job if they don't start with trying to understand what the client is trying to accomplish. So that would be my first line of question. And how you answer that is going to determine probably the entire conversation from there.
So Stephen, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
No, I think once again, in the process of you guys asking your questions, all of mine have been answered.
All right, excellent.
Might have to. Judy, thank you. This was really informative. Very good.
No problem at all. And can I just address the 3A issue quickly? The MBTA communities issue, because we're up to our neck in that. you have to be a little bit careful about trying to about trying to make the two of them work together. There are communities that have established their MBTA communities district on top of what are currently 40Bs, thinking that was going to be the solution, and it doesn't always work that well. So there's quite a bit that goes into the sort of test fit analysis for different places where you would want to put the 3A district, which may or may not align with what this person wants to do. But certainly if you can make the two work together, that's probably a good idea. It can be done. It's just a little bit tricky. You have to go through this test fit analysis with a model that the Commonwealth developed for 3A districts. Some sites work better than others.
Well, you've already given us some good consultation, Judy.
No
Thank you.
problem. I mean, let me know if if you think we can be of any help, let me know. I'd be happy to try to help you.
Yep. Did you have
I
any?
also appreciate your flexibility and thank you for your opening up the time tonight and talking with us.
That's
We
totally
Really
fine.
appreciate it. And like Marion said, I think you've already given us some good insights tonight.
All right. So,
Good
all
luck.
right, do you need anything else from me then?
No, I think we're good. Thank you. Good luck at your summit tomorrow morning.
I'm gonna go try to find food right now. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So I think we should, I don't have any discussion tonight. I think we have this on the agenda also Thursday night. So I don't know that we need to deliberate or.
There was a third, right? There was a third consultant we wanted but couldn't make it tonight. I would like
Yeah,
to hear from that.
unfortunately, they can't make it till July, is what Jeremy told us before you got
Oh.
in.
They seem quite busy. And one of the Nels actually earlier mentioned someone who's not necessarily a housing planner, but Lynn Sweet might be
yeah.
one.
We know
and
Lynn
you
Sweet.
might want to reach out to as well. So I'm not sure I can get her for this Thursday, but she might give you a little different perspective, not necessarily planning, but other perspective. But Bob might be raising his hand. She does work with various clients.
So yeah, Jeremy, you're unaware, but the rest of the board knows that she has represented me on multiple applications and would be conflicted out from the situation. So
Got it.
Yeah, yeah, and we've gotten to know her a bit too, just through that. So,
She's
yeah,
very,
and she no longer represents me, and I'll just leave it at that.
okay.
Yeah, but I would just, if you indulge me for 15 more seconds, I'd just say that I'm really happy that you guys are considering hiring someone in this space. I think that one of the things we all in town have a difficult time with is we have a lot of people kind of that do the amateur side of things. And I think something as serious as affordable housing and the conversations that I'd like to have with you all deserves to have a professional involved. So I just want to say a thumbs up on your idea of doing this. I am concerned about, dragging on because time matters in these situations, and but it's obviously your call. But I will tell you, time is of the essence. So
Let's
thank
see
you.
if we can push that third consultant maybe to come before July, even just for a 10-minute thing. I'll make myself available as much as I can on any time, just to
yeah, I will too. And
ask the
actually,
same question.
sorry, Eric, it would have been, it would be useful to get a reference to the webpage or so we can look into the consultant, that third consultant, and do our homework and maybe, get some preliminary thinking done about it. So to speed it up, exactly to Bob's point, we don't want to drag this out.
No, that's a good suggestion.
Absolutely.
So maybe if we get that, we can at least talk about that research we do on Thursday night.
Mhm.
The other thing, Jeff, that I'll just throw it out there that you could consider is a housing lawyer. What would I think be as valuable, if not maybe even a little more valuable to you in these conversations? But I don't want to tell you your side of the conversation, obviously. But I would not rule out
a little.
returning in the space.
No, that's a great suggestion, Bob, I think.
We've talked about it with Jeremy a little bit, and I think we approached Petrini with some stuff, and there might be a thought on it. I do believe that maybe at some point you engage more with a planner, with some of the, like I said, innovation 3A. At this point, I don't know how much a planner or that planner mentality is going to help, because we are a little reactive here. We're looking at a specific situation. I think it's worth being very open about that, and to, I'll invite them to talk about it now and then talk about whatever it was, to the consultants, just so they could actually know what they're dealing with, and I think that is of the essence, right, on the short term. It really is. Advise us on what's going on right now.
Mhm.
I think everyone's maybe a little bit too caught up into 3A, because like, what little I know about it, I do think the 3A is going to be hard to integrate with the 40B or even with this other. We
Yeah.
have certain situations where regular development comes in, how much that can count. Like I said before, Framingham's done. I think it's I hate it's being recorded. They've approved or permitted over 2,000 units and constructed it's over 1,000, and none of those are 40Bs because Framingham is in safe harbor, and but they have a 10% requirement consistent with the 3A actually. But understand, none of that counts, and it's all in the same district. It's all in the CB district. I look forward to watching the recording of the meeting that's happening right now.
Yep.
It's
Can't go to my
tough
chicken
to the
bone.
point where I wonder if municipalities will kind of gather together and push back and change this legislation. I could be wrong, but I wonder, like, all of a sudden how aware they were and starting to thinking, okay, let's rein in a little bit. Framingham alone is going to be required to put in 4,300 new units, and that's just
Huh.
even for a
That's
city like
crazy.
that, it's just not going to happen.
Yep.
Be built out. So
All right. Well, I think we've covered the topic tonight, so we'll see you again on Thursday night. I think we're actually starting. Correct me, Jeremy. We're starting at 6 on Thursday. Is that right?
Yeah, 6
So
o'clock.
Thursday
executive
is
session.
largely an executive session agenda.
So I noticed that an item came off the executive agenda. So now it's 3 items for an hour and a half. I'm sure we'll chew that up, but it might be a little bit of a break between that and the 7:30 open session.
Yep, I think so. All right. Thank you, Jeremy and Diane, and Margot and Bob for keeping us honest. And we'll see you same time in about 2 days.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Thanks again. So let's have a motion to close the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Second, Eric,
Aye.
Stephen,
Hi.
Marion,
Aye.
and I as well. Thank you, everyone.
See you.
Good night.
Good night.